Hey everybody, Brent Florica here and welcome back to Sketchbook B. I'm really excited to bring you part 2 of my 10 styles of Sherlock Holmes drawing exploration, and this was so much fun. And this second half actually has most of my kind of favorites from this 10 styles run that I did. And this was because I started off with more of the simpler styles and kind of worked my way up to some of the more complicated ones that I was a little bit nervous about, and I saved definitely the hardest one for last. So I hope that you enjoy this whole process. If you do, please leave a like and support the video and my channel. I'd really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get into this and start drawing. So the first style that I'm going to be doing in the second half is the style of Francis Manapul, and Francis Manapul has to be, I think, my favorite comic book artist. He has this really cool style that's it's got this geometry to it with the faces, but also there's a lot that's shown with the colors, and he uses this dissolve brush. He works digitally usually, and he has this dissolve brush to create this kind of splatter effect on his gradients and stuff, and it's beautiful stuff. I was first exposed to his work on his Flash run from New 52 and really liked that. And yeah, just he does a lot. He does penciling, inking, coloring, all of it. And so because of that, he's able to really set things up the way that he wants it, and just really cool. He's one of the channels actually on YouTube as well that I really enjoy. He doesn't post super often with his videos, but every time he does, I'm definitely checking them out because there's so much to learn from the way he does things, and he's willing to kind of show some of that for the regular folk like me, so I really appreciate that. And yeah, just always really enjoyed his style. This one, I was really excited about it, but I was a little disappointed with how it came out, mostly because as I was doing the drawing and stuff, and I'd already kind of inked it by this point, and I realized I put the eyes too close together, and there was some just little anatomy things that kind of bothered me after the fact. But still, I had a lot of fun with this one. I used actually brown ink instead of black ink, and this is actually something that Francis Manapul does, where he'll use even like just regular ink to do like washes and stuff, just sort of a glazing of ink that's not super solid black, or even sometimes he'll ink in a color like a reddish sort of color in order to kind of soften the effect of the inks so they're not so in your face when you get to the coloring stage. And I find that that's just a really unique aspect of his style that I tried to kind of replicate by using the brown, but you can be the judge of if it's really noticeable or not. Again, I'm working traditionally on these drawings instead of digitally, so I don't have some of the abilities that he has with his digital tools, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed this style. He uses fairly simple line work and again, some fairly geometric lines at times, but yeah, just a really enjoyable style, and I really had fun putting this one together. The next style is, I believe his name is Daniel Acuna, I believe that's how you pronounce it. And he has kind of a different style from some of these other guys that I have in my 10 styles, because his is a lot more messy. And this is a style that, again, is not something that I would probably do myself in terms of replicating it, but in my own work. However, I find it really visually interesting, And there's something about this that just makes it really really dynamic and action-packed, and for the stuff he does, especially when he's doing kind of street level characters and things, it just has this sort of grittiness to it that is appropriate for scenes like that, especially in like cities and things. I find it works well in that kind of environment. So yeah, I really like his stuff. His line work is very loose with the brushes. He uses a lot of just a lot of color to show his forms as opposed to line work, and a lot of just kind of loose general hatching, and it feels very messy, very chaotic, but at the same time in a way that still works somehow. And I tried to kind of replicate that with this drawing of Sherlock, and I was actually really happy with how this one came out. I find one thing that he does a lot actually is he will outline a character in like a totally different color. So in this case I tried to create that using orange, and yeah, it's just kind of fun to play around with some different color and things like that that are different than a lot of the other ones in this 10 styles video. So yeah, that one was really fun. Next up is another one of my favorites, who I would probably say is in my top 3 comic book artists, and that's Jason Feybach. And I mean, he's big time and very popular right now, and there are many who consider him to be the top comic book artist in the business right now. He's done some amazing stuff, and I love his style because it's very detailed, and I appreciate that as someone who likes to put down a lot of ink and try and be sort of accurate proportionally. I really appreciate that about his work. He uses a lot of hatching and a lot of really dramatic shadows and stuff. And yeah, just not afraid to put lines down on the page, but he does it in a way that's contrary to, in contrast to some of the other ones that I've done so far on my top 10 styles. He's been able to do it in a way that's very controlled and feels very intentional. And so I find that his stuff, even though there's a lot of lines, it feels very orderly. And as someone who's very type A and likes things to be orderly, I really appreciate that about his stuff. Yeah, I tried to capture like just kind of an accurate representation of Benedict Cumberbatch's face and look, and so I've been using photo reference for all of these, just various different pictures of Benedict from the Sherlock show. And so for this one I used, it was no different. I used an image that I had from there, and was able to kind of replicate that as best as I could, and tried to use a thin pen so that I could get some of those details of the face without it being kind of too overbearing on the ink, and that way the line work could kind of shine through, and I would do very little in terms of coloring, so that the ink work is kind of what the focus is. So yeah, this one was a lot of fun to do. I was really happy with how this one turned out. So this was one of the ones I was definitely most excited to do at the beginning of this whole process. I really hope you're enjoying this process so far. If you are, please leave a like, and give me some feedback in the comments here. So I want to know a couple things from you, and if you'd be so kind and let me know in the comments, I'd really appreciate it. 1, which one of these is your favorite out of all of these styles? 2, which one do you think I executed the best? And then 3, do you want to see me do a part 2 of these 10 styles with Watson? Yeah, let me know in the comments, and if there's enough interest in doing that, I would totally love to do Watson in all of these styles as well. You can't have Sherlock Holmes without Watson. I don't know. I said it in the last video too, but I think it would be fun to kind of do a pairing, and then we can compare side by side sort of which pairing of drawings is everyone's favorite. So I don't know. I think it could be fun. But anyway, let me know in the comments so that I know kind of what you guys want to see going forward. Okay, second to last now. This one is the style of Howard Porter. And yeah, I was first exposed to his work on, I believe it was the Joshua Williamson run of The Flash. And I really, really like Howard Porter's style. It's chaotic, it's somewhat messy, but at the same time, very detailed. It's almost a contradiction in some ways, but I love it. It has so much energy, and he has this way of showing so many planes on his anatomy. I really, really like it. His pen work is very, very precise and fine. He does these really thin little hatch lines and stuff, and a lot of the time actually he does what's called color holds. That's where instead of leaving the line work black, you actually color the line work itself, and it's a subtle way of kind of pushing it back a little bit so that it's not so dominant, but he does that a lot. So he'll sort of represent all the different planes of muscle or whatever, but then because he does these color holds, it backs off the line work so it doesn't look so weird like he's drawing lines all over the body. It kind of makes it more subtle. And yeah, other things that I noticed about his style is that he draws things very sort of rounded and a little bit more sort of bulbous, like with a nose, for example. He does a very sort of rounded type nose, and lips, and he draws his eyes quite big. I've noticed as well his proportions for drawing people are interesting. He tends to do more squat legs than most comic book guys do. A lot of times with superhero anatomy, people try and do like really long legs to have them sort of longer than usual and kind of a shorter body and whatnot. But for him, I find actually he goes quite long with his torsos and then a little bit stubbier with the legs, and not so much that it looks really weird, but just enough to kind of make it unique. And I think it actually looks kind of cool. All his characters look sort of muscular and stocky that way, and it's just kind of a unique aspect of his style that I really enjoy. So this one, I was actually really happy with the final result. I was really nervous to do it just because of all the precision that's involved with the line work, but I pulled some good reference and was able to kind of use that and make this sort of a Barry Allen Sherlock combo, I suppose, if Barry Allen had Sherlock's haircut. But yeah, it was kind of fun to play around with and just kind of see what Sherlock might look like if he was in the style of Howard Porter. So this one was a lot of fun to do. Okay, so this is the final one of my 10 styles of Sherlock. This is the style of Alex Ross. He is a very famous artist, well known for painting all of his comics and all of his artwork. He uses gouache, which is this really cool type of paint medium, which I've never used myself personally, but it seems really, really interesting and can definitely achieve some really cool effects. He tends to do everything traditionally. He is not a digital artist, so respect. And so there's a hard copy of every one of his paintings, which is amazing. He goes for high realism, which is super awesome. And he does really, really incredible work with lighting. The stuff he does, I looked at a lot of different reference material to try and kind of figure out the way I wanted this to go. I thought at first of doing like a Sherlock with his pipe, maybe like lighting it, and the light of that is kind of casting, some beams of light onto his face, and then everything else is in deep shadow. I thought though maybe that would be a little bit too ambitious for me to try and do, so I went with more of kind of a regular lighting scheme, but I still did the solid black background because he does a lot of this where he'll do sort of a portrait of a superhero, for example, or something, and do all black for the background, and then have parts of the hero sort of emerging from out of the darkness into like a really intense spotlight. And I thought that looked just so epic and cool. And a lot of times he'll do kind of a monochromatic color scheme with these. So even if it's like a drawing of, or a painting of Superman, for example, who has a red and blue and yellow suit, the whole thing will be sort of shades of green, for example, or yellow or something. And so you won't actually really notice those colors. It's all kind of in those shades. So most of this drawing actually was markers. I didn't do any inking on this really, except for a few little touch-ups at the end to darken up the eyes. But all of this really was with my Copic markers, and I thought the markers actually worked really well for this because I just did some very, very light penciling. And you may have noticed that the penciling showed up really faintly in this video compared to some of the other penciling. And that's because I actually switched pencils to a harder lead so that I could put the general line work down really faintly. And that way the lead wasn't so soft that when I would go over top of it with the markers that it would smudge everywhere. I actually, unlike what I normally do, I would put pencil down, ink over it, erase the pencil, and then color. In this case, I actually left the pencil lines there and started coloring with the markers right over top of it. But because I used a harder lead, it allowed me to do that. And so this was really, really fun. I used an orange color scheme, and so I just took my stack of markers that I have of my Copics from, yellow red quadruple 0 all the way down to yellow red 09. And then also added in my warm grays 1 through 8 or whatever. And so using only those markers, started just building it up, started light, darkened and darkened and darkened in the shadow areas, and then went back with the lighter colors and blended in over and over and over again, and then went in with the warm grays over top of the oranges to kind of darken things up and create this really dramatic lighting scenario. And I had a blast with this one. This definitely took me the longest out of all of them. There was so much just going back over with these markers to make sure that I got things dark. There were a few times where I thought it was done, and then I looked at it again and it's no, it needs to be darker. It needs to be more dramatic, because if you look at Alex Ross's work, he doesn't hold back. His stuff is extremely dramatic with his lighting, and that's why it's so awesome. And this is actually the same approach, whether he's doing one big picture or a comic book, he takes the exact same approach. He'll paint an entire comic book, which is just amazing, especially considering just how small those panels can be and all the little detailing that's involved in that. It really is incredible, the style that he has developed over the course of his life. And yeah, definitely worth checking out his stuff. It's just, he is a true artist in my mind. So this one I definitely wanted to wait until the end to do, because it was the one I was the most worried about. I knew this one was going to take the most focus and you know, to try and be accurate and represent Benedict Cumberbatch as best as I could. I was pretty happy with the end result of it, and yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think, but hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thanks so much for joining me at Sketchbook B. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that stuff. Make sure you let me know in the comments which one was your favorite from these 10 and if I should do a sequel with Watson. Check out my other content over here, and thanks a lot. I'll see you next time.